never smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some ditsies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys, Miss Liz in the house, and today I have the incredible Anne Alexander Sieder Sieder in the house. I'm gonna get her to pronounce her last name because I think I'm pronouncing it wrong, but I'll get her to pronounce it. But today we're gonna talk about acting and all of that good stuff. We're gonna talk about teaching and coaching and all of the good things that she offers and brings to the table. But today's tea that we are serving is whatever is blocking you is actually your starting point. That is Anne's tea. So we are serving that. But before we get started, you guys know how Miss Liz rolls. We get everybody over to all those platforms: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Shopify, Spotify. Why do I keep saying Shopify? There must be something coming with Shopify. Who knows, right? And all the podcast apps out there. Give those a like, follow, and subscribe, and get these tea times out there because they do make a difference for the guest and for someone who is listening that it might resonate with, because we do bring a little bit of everything for everybody out there. So before we get started, disclaimer and then an intro, and then we're going to get Anne in here and we're going to spill some tea and we're going to have a good afternoon together. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicating to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own good judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or visit my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary, and Miss Liz welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart. And if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your decision and wishes and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, welcome to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where courage meets conversation and bold ideals turn into real action. Today's guest is someone who lives by one powerful message. If you want change, you have to act boldly. Please join me in welcoming Anne Alexander Sieder, founder of Act Bold, global entrepreneur and advocate for stepping beyond fear into purpose-driven action. Anne's work centers around helping individuals and leaders break through limitations, take decisive steps forward, and create impact on a global scale. With an international perspective and a fearless approach to growth, she encourages people to stop waiting for the right moment and start creating it. Her message is clear. Bold action is not about having all the answers. It is about trusting yourself enough to take the first step. So grab your cup and lean in. Today's Tea Time is about courage, action, and the power of stepping into your boldest self. Let me get Anne in here and let's spill some tea together.
Hello. Hi, Miss Liz. Well, you did a pretty good job on my last name. You did the one. My last name is Sieder, like the tree.
Sieder.
Yes.
Thank you
There you
for
go.
helping me with that. I always feel
Yeah.
bad when I can't pronounce the last name. Uh,
Yeah, people never know, but I live in Germany and the Sieder is pronounced cedar.
and that is so
So
much
there you
easier. I wish I would have asked you
Yeah.
before we went live. Uh, so, Anne, let's get started with who you were as a little girl and who you are now.
Oh, geez. Okay. How old? What are we talking? Which little
A
girl
little
are we
girl, go
talking
as
to?
young as you want to go. Let's go to the youngest memory you remember about yourself.
Honestly, you know what? The earliest memory I have, and I know this for a fact, it was before I was 2 years old because my parents left that house when I was around 2 as they divorced, was, my sister, she was a year younger than I am, and we shared a room, and she was trying to get out of she had thrown her bottle out of her crib, and she wanted her bottle back, and she fell out. And I remember that. I remember my parents rushing in and lights and that, I didn't know what was happening, but I remember watching her do that, and I don't remember having a thought about it, but I remember what had happened. So that's my very earliest memory, whatever that says about me. Um, I think I was a typical little girl. I'm the oldest of 4. Growing up, I had 2 little sisters, and I had a surprise little sister when I was about 18.
Oh,
Typical kind of firstborn, that whatever that means. And I was a real rebel as a teenager. I would say, the teenage me is probably the me I still carry with me. Um, and when I was a teenager, it got me into a lot of trouble. But as an adult, I think it serves me well. It serves as my inner compass to staying true to myself. I think as a teenager, I didn't know what the heck that meant or, what it was pointing to and all of that. Life experience has taught me, when to read things and how to read things, how to interpret things. But being true to who I am and what I want to do, I have to say, is something that's always been a big part of who I am. Yeah.
and the reason that I asked that question is because I'd like to know if the little child and the adult child connect to work together.
Sure. I don't think that we ever really change, I mean, I can remember as a little girl, like, feeling at times like I was looking out through my eyes. I don't know how to put it other than that, but just sort of feeling like that my eyes were the window and I was looking out, and that the me that was in there back then is still the me that's in there now. Um, she's just grown a lot and learned a lot and lived a lot, but I don't think I've fundamentally changed.
And I think that's really important when we can understand that we really haven't changed, right?
Mhm.
We aged and we just grew, you know, in size and age wise and wisdom from all the life experiences
Wisdom,
we've gone
sure,
through.
experience. Yeah, life is the best teacher of all. As long as we choose to see it that way. It's interesting because I know people that everybody goes through hard times, right? There's nobody who gets out of this life completely unscathed.
Yeah.
Some people, will go through harder times than others, but I never think it's for us to judge what one person considers hard because that is their experience based on their experience. And what may seem like, "Oh, I wish that that was all that happened to me," for one person, for the person who that's the worst thing that's ever happened to them, I think we have to respect that and just,
Yeah.
you know yeah.
So and let's get into your tea because I want to get into the tea and then I'm going to get into some of the questions that are coming into the studio and some of the questions I
Sure.
have here for you. The tea that you gave me is whatever is blocking you is actually your starting point. Why'd you give me that tea?
I learned that much later in life. I think I, like everybody else, growing up, I would see an obstacle, and at times I was very stubborn. And I would just like find a way to plow through it or around it, but without much strategy. And it wasn't until I had decided to relaunch my acting career. I was a 47-year-old woman, American woman, living in Germany. And, I didn't have any current showreel material, no current contacts, no clue, to be very honest, about how the industry worked. And my very first huge gap or problem was that I was very rusty. I had been a professional actor in America. I was SAG-AFTRA working on my equity card, so I was working professionally enough to have my health insurance paid for through SAG. Didn't have to have a side hustle. Then I met a hot German guy, ended up in Germany. And 16 years go by where I was working acting adjacent as I cared for our family. So doing voiceover, presenting in commercials, but that wasn't what I considered acting. And so when I decided I wanted to relaunch my career, the very first thing I knew I needed was training in order to get my skills and my confidence back to where they needed to be. But that thing of what I needed was also the challenge or the problem, however you want to look at it, because I live in Germany, and there wasn't a whole lot going on in Munich, which is also the city I live in. So that left me with, really the not very realistic choice of having to fly to London, LA, New York, whatever, to get the training that I wanted. I still had a child. I still had a husband, that very expensive. So, I mean, honestly, that wasn't realistic to do on a regular basis. Giving up, which was not an option, or figuring it out. So I decided to see if I could just bring the training to me. And that's what I started with. And my original thought behind that was if I could just get a handful of other people to take this workshop with me, maybe I'll have to pay a couple $100 for it, but it's better than having to fly to somewhere and pay thousands for the flight and the workshop and the hotel and food and blah, blah, blah. So that was my only real goal, but I ended up selling out the workshop, ended up making 1,300 euros in 2 days. And I got my training for free. But for me, it was never about the money. It really was like this big epiphany. It was like, wait a minute, you mean I can use what I need to get what I want? All right, let's go. And that was then I was off and running to the races. And the people who I brought into that very first workshop, I am still friends and colleagues with some of them today. So there were so many other benefits to creating that community around the thing that I needed, that I didn't even take into account when I was doing it. So that's kind of the long-winded answer to it. It ended up having a lot of other ramifications because I started using it for other aspects of my career as well. But I'm happy to talk about that in a minute because you probably have some questions.
Well, we have some questions that are coming in, and I'd like to get this one out first. Reinvention at 47. That's amazing. What advice would you give to beginners?
Acting beginners. Is that what that question is about?
I'm guessing yes.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, thank you for saying that. Yeah. Well, honestly, if you are feeling drawn to being an actor, then get yourself in a class. Really get into it. Take some really good workshops and sign up for an improv class and sign up for some community theater and see if that is your thing. A lot of people are drawn to acting for the communal aspect, and it's not about becoming an actor. If you decide once you've been in some serious training that, this is what I actually want to pursue, then you need to get some serious training because acting is a skill. It's it's like a musician, will train for many, many years to play a concert. An actor does the same thing before they are ready to get on the stage or get in front of a camera. So that's my advice.
So the next question we have here as well, Anne's journey is so inspiring. What made you take the first bold step back?
That is such a good question. Well, I had a standing movie date with my son every Friday night since the time he was a little tiny boy. And when he was about 16 years old, he came to me on Thursday and he said, "Mom, do you mind if we don't hang out together this weekend or maybe any other weekend going forward?" And it was the first time in 17 years since I had gotten pregnant that I thought about, wow, what do I want to do? And not what do we want to do? Because the whole 17 years that, since I had gotten pregnant had been all about our family. And it was that thought, honestly, that led me down the rabbit hole of just, honestly, I on a whim, I just thought, I think I'd like to take an acting workshop. I haven't done that in a long time. And I just sat down and I Googled acting workshop Munich English, and one popped up the very next day with one seat open. So I whipped out my credit card. I signed up for it, went with very high hopes, very low expectations. It was amazing. And I had this pilot light that had been burning inside of me for acting that I didn't even know was still lit. And by the end of that 3-day workshop, it had just combusted. And I was
Came back open.
fire. Oh, fire, like just a raging inferno. And I knew, I don't know how. I know people are going to think I'm crazy, my husband, not least of them, but I need to give this one more shot. And I don't know if I've lost the train of the question, but that was for me the inspiration, just asking myself, what do I want? Because I think so many times as moms, parents, I know men do it too, but I think moms do it more. We put ourselves behind our family and our kids. And then by the time it comes around to, oh, wait a minute, I guess I do have time for me. So many of us think, well, and now that time has passed. But
Yeah.
it's never too late. Dreams don't have expiration dates.
Yeah, you can have a dream at 81, at 99, like
Exactly.
doesn't matter. But as moms, I get where you're coming from, man, because we put our children first for everything, right? And then they come to
Yeah.
us and they say, "I don't want to hang out with you anymore, Mom. It's not that you're not cool or anything. It's just I want to
But
hang
you're
with
not
my
cool.
friends."
Right,
Go find
exactly.
yourself a
Yeah.
friend, Mom.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what else, Liz? I mean, for me as well, it really like got me thinking about so many different aspects of why do we do this? And I think part of it is nature and love and, just the need and the want to put your child in front of you. But I also thought, what am I teaching my son
Yeah.
if everything was just to bring him into the world and raise him, and now my life is useless and worthless? What is that telling him about his life? What is that telling his daughters about their life? And for me, it was also really important to, whether I succeeded or not, to show my son that you may think I'm old, but I'm not too old to go after what I want. And there's never a time when it's too late.
I think
So,
that's really an important message to give to all the kids and all the listeners out there, right? Is that us
yeah.
moms too, we have dreams and goals. And and being the example for our children and showing our children that we can do it at any age. We have a question here that came in about 47. What was the biggest challenge returning at 47, Anne?
Oh, where do I start? Well, I mean, the first big challenge was actually, how do I get what I need, which was the training in order to compete on a professional level again. But I solved that pretty quickly. And then I started doing that on a regular basis. So I was bringing in 2 to 3 coaches a month. I was organizing workshops in between those big workshops, I call them. I was organizing little workshops in between the big workshops. And I did that for about a year. So I was working out anywhere between 2 and 8 hours a day, probably 6 days a week.
Ooh.
So that after a year of doing that, I was ready. But then the next challenge was, the last time I had shot anything was actually on celluloid film. I mean, I've been in this industry a long time, and
Yeah.
it had all, been destroyed in a flood in my mother's basement when I moved to Europe. So I had nothing, and even if I did have it, it was too old. It was almost 2 decades old. So it
Yeah.
just didn't represent who I am, who I was then. It's not even who I am anymore because I've, aged again. So that was the next challenge, was getting the show reel material. And I did that again by organizing an event, like basically just, find the director of photography, find a sound guy, and shooting it. Me, myself, and 11 other actors. We all ended up getting 2 show reel scenes each. And again, this is something that normally costs thousands of dollars. I got mine for free, and ended up being able to pay some people who I enjoyed working with and make a little bit of money on the side for myself. But the most important thing was getting that. So really, every time I'd come to a challenge in my career, I would try and see, well, what can I do about this? Sorry, I'm still getting over a cough. And when you're an actor, I think this probably applies to a lot of different artists, but when you're an actor, it's always going to come down to what I call the sick factor. So if your
Okay.
career is ailing, it's going to come down to one of these 4 things. And SICK is an acronym that stands for skills, industry proof, which is your materials, connections, or knowledge. And it's going to be one of those 4, and it's usually some combination of those 4. So it was always first being able to diagnose, what the heck do I need in this moment right now to just get me one step closer to where I'm trying to get to? Because I think so many times we see a problem and we don't see it for a step.
Yeah.
We see it for this range of Alps, and you think, oh my God, how am I supposed to get across that? And instead of that, what do you need when you go on a hike? You need a map. You need to know where you want to go, and you need a good pair of boots. You need some supplies, basically. And that's kind of it. And then when you get to the next challenge, okay, stop and look around and say, what do I need now? Because oftentimes you don't know. People are trying to make plans for all the things that could happen or might happen, or this and that, and oh my God, and what if I get famous, and what if this, and what if I have to move, and what? Cross that bridge when you get to it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Just cross that bridge when you get to it. But you have to get moving. That's the most important thing. You have to get moving. And other than that, like, career related, I was the biggest obstacle, my own limiting beliefs, and, coming to terms with who I was at that age. I was almost 50 by the time I was really ready to relaunch. When I left the industry, I was in my late 20s. That's a big difference, and I knew that even though I had been a professional actor and I'm professionally trained, so I believe in my skills and all, but honestly, when I looked back on my career, there was nothing I could point to where I could say, oh, that happened because I did this. So many of the things happen because people are eager to open doors for bright young things,
Yeah.
and that happened a lot, and that's not repeatable. So luck, which is what that was, is not something you can rely on. And
Yeah.
I knew that going back into it. But so that was part of it. And I didn't have a strategy. All I knew was what everybody else was doing, because that's all I had ever done. And so that apart from getting the training and things like that, just sort of being innovative, I guess, about how I went about solving my particular problems, I hadn't quite yet learned to apply them to my career until I got more into it, in terms of getting the better roles. So the first time that happened, I would say I was back, I was working, I was getting typecast a lot. as the bitch in charge. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this. I'm sorry if I'm
Yes,
not.
you are. This is
Because
real
that was
show.
mine.
This is real life
Keep it out.
tea. Like, if we gotta curse, we gotta share a little bit of shit once in a while, right? Like,
Okay.
we're adults. It's real life talk here.
Yeah. Good. And I thought, sure. Okay. I get it. Yeah. Just the way my face comes together and my energy and all that. I get it. But there's another side to me, and there's a warm and playful and maternal side, and they are obviously not seeing that. So what can I do to change that? And I think that maybe just even that mindset was the biggest help for me. So instead of noticing things, what's wrong, and blaming everybody else, why don't you people see me the way I want to be seen? Just saying, what can I do to change this? And so I ended up shooting a short film a month for about 6 months. And then I was using the workshops to pay for them, because even though people donate their time and their talent, we still have to feed them and pay for transportation and housing and great equipment and things like that. So that's what I was doing there. And then again, it worked. So I started getting better auditions. That's when I got the Hallmark and Netflix and the A24 and things like that. So I started really getting much better auditions and roles. And I was also starting to get invited to like premieres and events and whatever, stuff like that, festivals, things like that. And I remember very specifically one night, myself and about 7 other actors are standing around this poor casting director, just like really just like you could just like feel the need and desperation rolling off of everyone as they're trying to pretend like I could care less, of course, this is so casual, and nobody's even like open to the idea that she is there to network as well. She's
Yeah.
looking for her next project to work on. But we're all oblivious to that. And there was this moment, it was like almost like this out of body experience where I was just like, I just kind of like stood back and I was like, yuck, I don't want any part of this begging to be considered, begging to be seen, begging to be valued, and it was just so disempowering. And I thought, I wonder if I hire her. And there we went. And that's what I started doing. I literally was like, I'd love to work with that person and that person and that person. And I started hiring them and putting together these workshops. And what they ended up doing was giving me all the benefits that the other actors were getting. So I was able to perform. I was able to, do whatever the workshop was about. I obviously got that benefit as well. But the added benefit of having the conversations before the workshop, or picking them up at the airport, or taking them out to dinner, or sometimes they stayed in my house with me, or, talking about the other actors after the workshop, because that happens too. And we became friends. And that was something that probably wouldn't have happened where I was. You
Yeah.
need something that puts you on even ground. And being able to offer something does do that. And I know a lot of actors hear this and they're like, oh my God, yeah, well, how am I supposed to afford that? And there are many ways to do it where you don't pay anything out of pocket up front, because, I get it. I work with actors all the time. So that's very possible. But yeah, I think that's the biggest mindset shift is stop blaming whatever, the world, the person, the circumstances for whatever you're not happy about in your life, and think, okay, so what can I do about it?
Absolutely. And we got a couple of questions here. I'm just going to pop them up really fast, but they all kind of coincide all together, because one is about, here we go. Let me get this one up here first. How did you stay confident starting over with no contacts? You kind of explained a little bit about how you did that. And then let's get into, how did you overcome the fear when starting from zero again? They kind of go together. So I wanted to bring those two questions up at a time.
Yeah, both such good questions. And fear is such a funny thing. When I was young, I thought there would be this magical day when I was a grown up that I wouldn't be afraid anymore because all the grown-ups I looked at didn't look like they were living with the fear that I was definitely living with as a teenager. But as I grew up, I realized that that's not true. But the way I viewed that fear has changed very much. So when I was young, I think I used to view fear as a bully, like
Oh,
this, just like this big hulking thing standing in front of me and saying, "You're not getting past me." And as an adult, I see it more as a helicopter mom, like someone just kind of buzzing around you, going, "Oh, don't hurt yourself. Oh, you might make a fool of yourself. Oh, you might da da da." And I think at the end of the day, it's like with a lot of love, back off. You can watch me. I see you. I get you, but I'm going to be just fine, even if I fall flat on my face. And I think sometimes you just have to ask yourself, what is more important? Is it more important to let that fear stop you from
yeah.
your true potential? Or and what is the worst thing that can happen? That is something my dad used to say to me all the time. He would say, "What's the worst thing that can happen?" They'll say no, or they'll slam the door in your face. So what?
I
You'll
always
live.
say if I get a no, I'm knocking on 3 more doors. So it's your fault that you said no. That I'm bugging 3 more people.
Exactly. Yeah, really good attitude, Liz. And and I think that it's just coming to that realization. I think so many of us are afraid to fail, and we let
Yeah,
the fear of failure keep us from even trying. And that is so sad because at the end of the day, when you are laying down for your big sleep, you know, we always regret the things that we didn't do, not the things that we did try.
absolutely. Uh, the question that just came in is what mindset helped you turn obstacles into opportunities? And then we have another question about a coma that I want to get into as well.
Ooh. What mindset? Maybe I'm just really stubborn. you know, I don't
Stubborn
like it
is
when
good,
people
girl.
tell me no. Yeah, and also, yeah, I've always had a real rebel spirit. So as soon as people, and people did, like what my husband even, he loves me, he believes in me, but when I first told him, I want to relaunch my acting career, it was just like, honey, you're almost 50 years old. I mean, it was like, and I was like, so, and, you know,
Your point is don't
yeah,
mess with a
exactly.
menopausal
Yeah.
woman.
Oh, and did I answer that question?
I think so.
Okay.
Let's get this question up here because you did have a coma, correct?
I did. Yes.
I'm just looking for that question. I just want to pull it up. Do. Here we go. Is how did your coma experience change your life direction, Anne?
Mm. Ooh, yeah. Looking back, it was a long time ago. I was 29 when it happened. I had a well, when it happened, my baby was 4 months old. So, no, he was 7 months old. I take it back. But I started to get really sick when he was 4 months old. How did it change my life outlook? I don't know. Maybe it's something, maybe that in itself is what is, made me realize that life is short, literally. I mean, I was fighting for my life. The doctors had told my entire family I had a 5% chance to live.
Wow.
And I didn't know it. I think somewhere I knew it in my subconscious, but I was in an induced coma. So when you're in an induced coma, you still have brain waves. It's not that it's not that there's nothing happening there. You can still hear. As a matter of fact, my sister flew in from America to Germany, and I was on a ventilator and my eyes were taped shut, but I heard her. I knew she was in the room, and I came up out of it. I always say it was like swimming up, and I can remember like bells going off and being aware that she was there, and all of a sudden nurses around me and going back down again. So I'm sure they gave me something to suppress me again. But I think I just value things more. I value if I really think about this, it's interesting because you would think that I've thought about this more in my life, but I really haven't, because I'm not one to really dwell on things. But I think, honestly, I've been with my husband for 30 years.
Wow.
And yeah, thank you. And I think that part of the reason that we have been together so long is the loyalty he showed me. Oh, it's gonna make me emotional. In that time when when so many men, I think, people would have bailed. And, people always ask, what's the secret of a long marriage? And I always only half jokingly say, don't leave. Because it's true.
Yeah.
And for me, just the knowledge that he was there for me through thick and thin, I think has made me a better person. I try to be, it makes me very emotional. I try to be the example that he showed me about how a human being should be when something horrible like that happens.
And then this is what tea time is, right? It's real life. The emotions, thinking back, and I feel the same way. I don't like to ponder on things, but I like to reflect on things. The reflection
Yeah,
instead of
for sure.
pondering. And do you put those emotions into acting?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's one of the things I love about acting is that you can take some of the most difficult moments in your life and turn them into, and the most beautiful moments, but you can take the moments of your life and turn them into connection, because ultimately that's what acting is about. It's about telling a story in a way that touches other people. So yeah, for sure. I have a lot to draw on. So,
And this is why I like having guests like you on, and because there's so much depth into acting that people don't look at it, right? They don't understand the struggles and the rejections and the applying and reaching out. You turned it all around. Instead of you, like you said earlier, begging, you didn't like the begging and the values and all of that. So you turned it around and you said, you know what? Oh, I don't like the way this is going. I'm going to change it around. I'm going to act bold. And I want to get back into that word, act bold, because that is your platform. Let's get into, what does act bold mean to you, Anne?
I think ultimately it means not letting fear keep you from the things that you are meant to do, and not, meant to do. This can be such a heavy thing to put on people as well, because you may think that you're meant to do one thing and you start down that road, and halfway down the road you realize, oh, actually, I think I'd like to take a right at this next little rest stop here. And that's fine too. But you won't know until you get on that road. And this was something I always used to say to my son. Sometimes he had hard times as a teenager, like all teenagers do, and feeling out of place, that kind of a thing. And I would always say, babe, you gotta get on your road. And when you get on your road, you're going to meet other people on that road. And I think that that's part of it.
I like that. That's a good message. My grandma always told me, run your own race. Don't worry about what everybody else is running. Run your own race. And I like what you just said. Get on your own road. Get on your own road and run it. Like, get out there and do what you want to do. Don't do what everyone else wants you to do, or that film would be good for you, Anne, but you feel in your gut, oh no, that's not for me at all. Follow that intuition as well.
Absolutely. And you know what else, Liz? I just want to touch on this one point, because I think oftentimes, especially when you get to a certain age, like when you've been doing something for a long time and you feel like, well, I can't switch now, I mean, this is who I am. And I believe you can reinvent yourself at any time you want. There's no, there are no rules in this world other than to treat each other with dignity and kindness. Everything else goes. So do what you want, and
Absolutely.
don't let your should haves and you should do or shouldn't do or whatever it is. Don't let people dictate to you or yourself. Don't let those ideas that you've grown up with dictate to you where you should or shouldn't be going.
Yeah, and that's one word I think that we should delete from the vocabulary, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Well, you know what? We didn't do it. We went this way instead of that way. We took the left instead of the right, or we decided to go straight ahead because that was our lesson to learn and that was our road to take. And
the important thing is to keep moving. That's
exactly,
the important
right?
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
We have a question coming in here from Uganda, and it says, "Hi, Anne. What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?"
Oh, the biggest one I think is don't let fear stand in your way. Push that bully off to the side and see it for what it is. It's trying to keep you safe. It's not this big monster. It's actually, it comes from love and trying to keep you safe and protected. And so don't listen to it. Don't let it stop you, because I think I also, yeah, sure. I was ahead of fear of failing. And so maybe didn't do some things that I regret because I didn't do them. I should have gone out to LA. I went to Rome, instead when I was young, and I don't regret that, but you never know, right? I mean, life is a series of chain reactions.
Absolutely.
And yeah. So, but that's
Another
the biggest
question.
Yeah.
Another question we have for you, Anne, is how can beginners start rebuilding their creative careers today?
Well, I mean, I am a big advocate of depending on what you want to do, right? So, but I do think that the idea of finding someone who is teaching that thing that you want to learn about and bringing them in and finding a handful of other people who can go in on that thing with you and just start, because by doing that, you will be the person, you start to become the go-to person for that thing in your area. People start looking to you for that. You start getting invited to the kinds of things that you want to do. I call it the curator method. And the curator method, sure, I created this for myself as an actor, and now I teach it to other actors. But honestly, it would work just as well for an artist who's trying to figure out how to get a gallery to pay attention to them, or an agent to represent them, or a novelist who's trying to get an agent or figure out how to even write a query letter that gets opened, or sell their book, self-publishing, or any number of things. And there are so many different ways that you can approach this depending on what creative aspect, what it is that you are personally into. But I've helped such a variety of people before I kind of went back to my roots, which is just helping actors. Some were, woodworkers. One in particular is popping into my head. He's a woodworker. He wanted to get into the Christmas markets. He had tons and tons and tons of crafts that he had created, but he had no idea how to sell them. So, one of the things that we had come up with was, well, why don't you curate a 1-day or a 2-day event where you bring in some people who have done that, and find other artisans. They don't even have to be woodworkers. They could be anything, anybody who would be into selling their stuff at an art fair. And I'm sure that they would be thrilled to also find out how to get their stuff sold in an art fair and things like that. So it's just really I think so many times as creative people, we think, oh, well, we're not busy. We're not businessy. We can't do that stuff.
Yeah.
But the truth is you have so much creativity. Turn that creativity on finding solutions for yourself.
Absolutely. I want to get into where time is flying by, and we got some amazing questions that are coming in, but I'd like to get out what Anne actually does. And I want to talk about Act Bold. If people go to the website, they can see it on the screen at act-bold.com. If you go there, you can see all the incredible work that Anne is doing. But I want to get this last question out that just came into the studio, and then I'm going to get into a little bit of what you do, Anne, so we can get that out there for anybody that's interested in signing up and getting those workshops and all that along with you as well.
Yeah, sure.
So this question here is, what helped you stay resilient during your toughest moments?
Well, when I was so sick, it was definitely my son. I can remember that really, really clearly, like that there was a part of me that knew all I had to do was let go. I felt like I was hanging on a cliff, and all I had to do was let go, and I wasn't afraid to die. And maybe that's not what you're referring to, but that's the one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
But my son was the thing that made me want to live. And I am a survivor. I am a fighter. So don't get me wrong on that. But I was so sick. And my son kept me alive, so, and my son is often the reason, I think, the people I love, my son, my husband, my dog, they are often like the reason why I want to strive for more for various different reasons, but they're often my bigger why. So I think for me at any rate, but I think often for most of us, it's why there are only about 6 real needs we have as human beings to feel valued. And I don't remember them all off the top of my head, but significance is a big one. Feeling valued, feeling part of a community, feeling part of something bigger than you. And you just have to kind of ask yourself those hard questions. What is it that you want? What keeps you going? And if you don't have a child, if you don't have a pet, if you don't have a loved one, there are things bigger than you that are also worth being an example for.
I like that. Being that example. And our children are what keeps us going, on our hardest moments.
Yeah.
And I want to get into what you offer, because you offer the side door challenge and the Curator Academy.
The
Curator Academy with the curator method. So let's talk about the side door challenge and the curator method. What are those?
Okay, so the side door is really, this came about just from creating these workshops. So, and it's really because, especially in creative careers, there is a line miles long of people who are all trying to get into the front door, their traditional way in.
Yeah.
And I say, skip that line. Let's find a side door.
We're sneaking into the side party, right?
Exactly. Because once you're in the party, nobody cares how you got in.
Right.
And that the side door is a 5-day challenge that I run. It's it's a $27 5-day challenge that I run that teaches people literally how to, first of all, identify what that first thing is that's blocking them, and then figure out the solution that is going to get them one stepping stone closer to wherever they're trying to get to. And, and ultimately creating their side door. And usually each one of these workshops, labs, events, whatever you want to call them, those are the things that will create a side door, because you are making a connection. So it's not, you don't, and oftentimes people, actors especially, will think that agents, casting directors, those are the only way in. And they're just middlemen, I mean, it is what it is. They're not the final decision makers. So they're just someone who is presenting you to a decision maker. And there are lots of other people who can present you to the decision makers. So that's what the side door is about finding the other way in. And
I
skipping the long way.
like that you created a different way. I'm that
Yeah.
woman that likes the different ways. I like the different
Yeah.
boxes. I don't like the everyday box. This is the way it's got to be. Casting directors, agents, and find a little side door and sign up for $27. Like, come on, it's 5 days.
I
and you
literally
never
had,
know.
absolutely. I have one person who has made almost 10,000 euros in the past 4 months from joining the Side Door Challenge. So it's worth it.
Now let's get into am I saying right now?
The Curator Academy.
Curator method. What is that about?
So the curator method is really what I described. It is an extension of the side door. So it's just taking that one step further. It's where I literally take people by the hand, and it's a very hands-on, high-touch coaching program where I teach actors, how to identify that thing that's blocking them and get what they need to get to the next level again and again and again and again. So it's a year-long program that is very high touch. There's a lot of back and forth. The people in the program are amazing. I have an Emmy-nominated showrunner. I've, got some actors who've been on really well-known television shows, really well-trained actors. It's not for beginners. I'll say that. It is not for beginner actors. The side door is for anybody. But the Curator Academy is really for trained actors who've been in the industry for at least a little while. And even though they've been doing all the right things, they're not getting to where they want to get to. And they don't know what else to do.
Well, I really want to thank you for that. And and there was a quote that I seen here. Being a good actor isn't enough. What's missing?
Strategy. You have to think of it like a bird, right? So one wing of the bird is your talent, your skills, your training, your life experience, all of that. And sometimes people think that, talent and life experience are enough to get up and fly, and it's not. There's another wing. And the other wing is understanding the business of being an actor. And that is your mindset, your branding, marketing, networking, community, and finding other ways to get past that, million-person line stretching around the corner. And if you only have one wing, your little bird's going to be flapping around in circles on the ground. So you have to have two strong wings. That's what that means. Yeah.
I like that, two strong wings. Because there's so much that's hidden behind acting, right? Everybody's like light camera action and then big fame. That's what everybody thinks acting's all about. But there's so many different branches.
Yes.
And things that you have to do, like homework and exercises and, practicing and time consuming and sacrifices, because there are a lot of sacrifices that need to be made to be in this industry as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I think most people, the people that I work with, I mean, they just want it so bad. They're literally burning for it. And I think you need to be at that level if you want, because there will be sacrifices. And if you're not willing to make those sacrifices, then it's going to be a lot more pain than pleasure for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to get into grabbing the wheel for your own career. What does that mean when you hear that?
Yeah, I acting can be, I think many of the arts, but actors can feel very disempowered. They wait for to be chosen by an agent. They wait for their agent to call them for an audition. They wait for a casting director to invite them to an audition, to a callback. It's a lot of like, wait, 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 wait. They're paying for showcases to get in front of casting directors in the hopes that that casting director is going to see them and want to cast them in something. And they're investing constantly in their career. I call it a ravenous beast. Having an acting career is like a ravenous beast. It just is like, feed me, and you're always putting stuff into it and paying for new headshots and trying to get new material and make new connections and it can really keep you running in circles unless you get very strategic about it. And the problem with so many actors is that they just want to act so badly. When you say to them, as a coach, that's one of the first things I will ask is, what do you want? Oh, I just want to act. And it's like, that is not a goal. That you need a goal, right? So what does that mean? If you just want to act, go do some community theater. That's acting. You'll probably kill it. That's not what you want. Say what you want.
Have a goal,
And
right?
yeah. And I think so many times people are afraid to say it out loud. They know what they want. They're just afraid to say it. So that's the first thing, is just being able to identify that thing you want, because someone who so for instance, a couple of my students, I'll just name two very different ones. One is conservatory trained. She wants to eventually have her own theater company someday, and she loves Shakespeare and the classics and working with masks and things like that. And another one is an international actor. She's been in some really big shows in Germany and really wants to work on the international market. And they have very different dreams. And therefore, saying, I just want to act is not an intentional forward-moving thing. It's throwing confetti up and hoping that it all goes to one place where you want to end up, and that's not going to happen. So if you know where you want to get to, you can be intentional about how you're going to get there. For instance, for the one who wants to have her own theater company one day, she's near New York. So one of the things that she's doing is bringing in off-Broadway directors to where she is to teach intensive scene study for advanced actors, getting to know them, the very directors that she would like to work with. And of course, if they cast her in the meantime, fabulous. And she's also building a community where she lives of the actors who will one day potentially be a part of her theater company. So it really, really depends on where you want to get to.
Absolutely. Well, it's like, Anne, like when we set our goals, right? They tell us to set short-term goals and long-term goals. So where do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, you don't just say, I want to act in 5 years. What steps do you want to take to get to that acting? Do you want to be only a community actor or theater, or cinematic actor?
I
There's
have
so many different
framework
types,
for
right?
this. Absolutely. If it's an acronym, it's FRAME. So, and it's really the way to reverse engineer your career. So you have to think about the FRAME. F is future. What is the future that you want? What is the R, the reputation that you need in order to get that future? The A stands for action. What actions do you need to be taking in order to get that reputation, to get that future? What do you need to master? So someone who wants to work on action films may need to master stunt work, for example, or just be really physically fit, or, something like that. And then evaluate. Where are you? Like, did that work? Are you closer to where you want to be? And if not, figure it out again, but if you just keep that in mind, the frame is the framework for reverse engineering your career.
Well, and what final message would you have for everybody today that's listening?
I was going to say not everybody has huge dreams to be an actor or a singer or whatever it may happen to be. And I think that that's okay too. But know that you are probably capable of a lot more than you are allowing yourself to be. And to give yourself the opportunity and the trust to stretch your boundaries, because we all like to stay within the confines of our safety zone, of our comfort zone. But we all have dreams. And whether they're huge, big dreams that involve, a world stage or not, we all have them. And the only way to begin getting them is by taking the steps that stretch the comfort zone a little bit every time you do it. And when you do that, you realize that what scared you yesterday is now behind you. And sure, maybe tomorrow something else will scare you, but just taking those steps is going to give you the confidence and the trust in yourself to keep taking those steps.
And Anne, if anybody wanted to reach out to you, I know you have a podcast as well. If you'd just like to share out your website, spell it out for all the audio listeners, and then we'll wrap it up with a closing conclusion of today's tea time, and then I'll see everybody at 7 p.m. So, Anne, if you'd just like to shout out how people
Yeah, sure, no problem. So my name is Anne Alexander Sieder, ANNE ALEXANDER SIEDER. I'm everywhere on, all the normal platforms. My website is act-bold.com or act-bold.com, however you want to say that. But probably if you're not an actor, if you are an actor, definitely reach out to me through that. You can follow me on YouTube as well at Act Bold. And if you are not an actor, I answer all of my Instagram DMs and all of that personally. So you can find me on Instagram as well.
Well, thank you so much. What an energizing and empowering conversation. And thank you for reminding us that growth does not happen in comfort zones. It happens when we decide to move forward, even when the path is not fully clear. This afternoon, we were reminded that boldness is not about being fearless. It is about taking action despite fear. Your message encourages us to stop waiting, stop doubting, and start doing. To everyone listening, here is something to carry with you after this tea time. The life you are waiting for may be waiting for you to take the first bold steps. Until our next cup share, keep choosing courage, keep taking action, and keep stepping into the version of yourself that is ready to rise. And I want to see everybody at 7 p.m. and we'll do this all over again. And thank you again, Anne, for joining me on Tea Time.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for your great questions. Bye-bye.